Johnny spoke last Thursday a magnificent word, a now word, which is, among other things, and I don't want to miss it, but to say it in 10 words, hiding in the presence of the Lord, which is what Meveline just spoke. Is where is that secret place? Because where the secret place is, there's no fear, and there's abundance of victory. What I want to talk about is a bookend, hopefully, to what Johnny said. And it has to do with the presence of the Lord. And it has to do with the book of Exodus and Psalm 91, which is what I found out last night when I was telling my best friend. She said, that's what Tim Sheets just preached on. And what we're needing to do right now is to hide in God and be delivered, because the Lord has said America's going to go through some rough paces and places and spaces. I want to just throw a bit of a curveball at y'all, which is actually related to this. Could y'all turn to 2 Kings, the book of 2 Kings, chapter 3. And it is the battleground that we're in as a starting place, and it has to do with what Johnny spoke last week. And 2 Kings 3 says, and it's a strange thing, trying to check the time, okay, but this is an important story for all of us. It's like a platform. Love the way Mark Zuckerberg sees the whole world as a platform, not as a way to worship God, but a platform. The Israelites in the northern kingdom were in the midst of a battle that they were planning against Moab. This will make a lot of sense in 2 minutes. We've got to spend this time. And they came behind them in a complete surprise attack. Victory was totally assured. They had a miracle. If you've ever seen the book or read the book Streams in the Desert, it's based on this story that started in a miracle and ended up in failure. They ran out of water because they went behind the wilderness to attack the Moabites from behind, who were heavily into bloodletting and child sacrifice. And God just created a lake of water when they were about to die of thirst and heat stroke. And they went on and conquered all the nation of Moab except the capital city, which was a walled city. They had conquered 99% of the nation. They had the victory. The prophets, Elisha was with them, and he said, God's giving you the battle. He's giving you the victory. They had a lake appear in front of them where water had never been for 200 years. And yet, when they got to the wall of the fortress city, the king saw that it was going against him. Verse 27, chapter 3, the king took his oldest son, who was to reign in his place, and offered him as a burnt offering on the wall. And there came great wrath against Israel, and the Israelites withdrew and returned to their land. They fled. The devil has his own bloodletting sacrifice, which is an imitation of the blood of Jesus. It's not as powerful, but in this case, because so many of the people had half of their mind believing in the devil's sacrifice more than God's, they fled the battle. They had won the battle and they fled. And the history of the northern kingdom of Israel went down the tubes because they believed in FEAR, false evidence appearing real. And Johnny was talking last week about how the Lord warned him about fear. And God was just speaking to me a little earlier today, and he said, this is what's happened to America, among other things, is there is a blood sacrifice which has been put upon us in the past 3 years, and they say, you must do this, you must do this, you must do this. The doctors are saying, you've got to do this, you've got to do this, you've got to do this. And it's actually a blood sacrifice. It causes blood diseases. And people believe it. False evidence appearing real. So, with that, can we turn to Matthew 24, briefly? Matthew 24. And I guess I better get this clicker going here. Other way, okay. We're learning to do these things. It's not clicking, but that's just lovely. So, it's just going back and forth. Oh, okay. Okay, 10 seconds, we'll try this. That didn't... There we go. Okay. But anyway, I'm skipping around a little bit. Matthew 24, it says, Jesus warned 2 warnings about the end times, and we are in the end times. And he said, see that no one deceives you. The deception is off the charts right now, and will get worse. But the thing is, I thought Matthew 24 was more complicated than this, and actually he gave us 2 warnings. Do not be deceived, particularly about the spirit of the Antichrist and the appearance of the Antichrist as to what he's up to. And the other is, it says right here, and I'm glad y'all are laughing, see that you're not alarmed, which is afraid. The other command is do not fear. False evidence appearing real will make you run from the battlefield when you've got the battle won. We're about to have the greatest victory in the history of the Christian church, and the enemy is trying to tell us that we have to take the mark of the beast. Not yet. The time is not yet. The time is not yet. Now, in 1914, World War I was starting. This is a long time ago. And it was the Great War. And people did not know what that meant. They wondered if it was the end of the world. And there was a miracle preacher named John G. Lake who was walking in the miracle power of God. And they said, is this the end of the world? He was a Bible scholar. He was like the Benny Hinn of a century ago. And he said, no. He says, the glory of the Lord has to fill the earth. That has to come. A lot of people think the rapture could come at any moment, but it can't, because the glorious church has to rise up and the glory of the Lord has to take over the earth. I had a dream a few weeks ago in which I was in a, let's just say, the most godless European country of the godless European countries there. They don't believe in Jesus anymore. They call it a post-Christian era up there. Nobody believes in Jesus in this country. And I saw streams of water running everywhere. The patios became a stream of living water. Their porches of atheist people were overrunning with pure, clear water. They couldn't drive their cars normally because the water was everywhere. And God said, the glory is about to fill the earth. I'm going to make it where nobody can miss it. I'm going to give them a chance. This is what we're walking into. Can we turn to Isaiah chapter 40, verse 5. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 5. And it says, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh will see it together. Now, all flesh is not going to be alive after the end of the world. It's not going to be alive when Jesus returns. It's not going to be alive halfway through the tribulation. Which means before we get raptured, the glory of the Lord is not happening in the millennial kingdom. That's not going to help so much. The glory of the Lord needs to be revealed now. And in the next few weeks, and it will be. And it's going to cover the entire earth. And we're going to be very busy in ministry, praise the Lord. January 3rd of this year. The year started with a very strange night. I remember I was scanning the channels on my cable TV, and I just saw people standing still and others huddled on the ground praying. And I saw prayer group, prayer group, prayer group, prayer group. I'm going, what is this, Christian TV? No, it was ESPN. It was the Buffalo Bills Stadium, January 3rd, when Darren Hamlin had collapsed with heart failure. And I thought to myself, I felt the glory of the Lord, and it invaded that space. Everyone was crying out to God, even if they didn't believe in God. People were singing, "Oh, if God was one of us." I mean, they were trying to reach God any way they knew how for this guy. And Scott Van Pelt of the sports program on ESPN, he's practically on his knees. He's got tears in his eyes, and he's saying, "Everybody pray." And this is a woke network. 2 years ago, God spoke to me one of the first times I came here, and he said, the end times are going to be different than traditional church. And he said, I'm going to win the lost with two main strategies. One is marketplace Christianity, which is what Johnny has been a leader in the prototype of, the marketplace church, the church in the middle of the business district, and the glory cloud. The Lord told me, he said, when Mario Murillo started his tent meetings in California, he said, he gave me a word, he said, that is not just some kind of interesting fad. He said, these tent meetings are a replay of Mount Sinai. And he said, on Mount Sinai, I wanted so much for all the people to come up the mountain and be blessed, but they were too sinful, so they had to stay down. He said, under the blood of Jesus and under my glory cloud at the end time, I'm going to invade stadiums like I did for Darren Hamlin. I'm going to invade marketplaces. I'm going to invade colleges like Asbury. And the Lord and the presence of the Lord and the heavy Shekinah glory will have atheists get on their knees and say, God, if you're there, just show me a sign, show me something. Thousands of people appeared for no particular reason at Asbury. They just showed up. And God said, I'm going to invade places with the glory cloud. Sorry. And he says, this is how we're going to finish it. Several years ago, I was on staff at a church, and I was invited in by the church cell group leader. And she said, Allan, this was a mega church. This was a traditional mega church, and she's the head of cell groups. And she says, Allan, the Lord gave me a word, and he said, don't share it with too many people, but share it with Allan. I was brought in. I was head of street witnessing. They had a street witnessing. I was head of it. And I went into her room, or into her office, and she said, the Lord told me the last move of God. And when she started talking, the glory of the Lord filled her office, and you couldn't stand up. The glory of the Lord filled her office, and you could not stand up. And she said, street cell groups, marketplace Christianity, we're going to leave the church walls. We're going to leave the church walls. We're going to leave the church walls, and you're going to lead someone to Jesus at 8 a.m. at a bus stop and say, I'm getting off work at 5 o'clock. I'll be back. And they're going to lead four of their friends. They're going to bring four of their friends, and they're going to get saved. And then you're going to have another meeting, and they're going to invite their friends, and 20 people are going to get saved on a street corner one day. This is how the last move of God will be. And I studied this, and I looked, and God spoke to me, and he said, Joel 2:28-29. And he said, it's leaving the church walls It's leaving the church walls. And your manservants and your maidservants, Waffle House people, regular people are going to be like Benny Hinn, leading people to Jesus on midnight shift. People that are not known are going to finish the Great Commission. Outside the church walls, Joel 2:28-29, Joel's army, we're going to overwhelm the devil with millions and millions of people, not one Benny Hinn, not one Billy Graham. There will be more people than demons. That's how we're going to finish the Great Commission. And then God said, and I was pondering and seeking the Lord, and he said, Luke 14:23. Luke 14:23. Because I was thinking what this woman got, you want to check the prophetic. You want to check 2 or 3 witnesses with everything. 14:23, it says, the parable of the great banquet. And it says, the master said to the servant, go to the highways and hedges and byways and compel them to come out in that my house may be full. And God said, that is right. The cell group leader was right. She's totally on point. We're leaving the church walls. We're going to just go out and win people in the marketplace and wherever, in stadiums. And this is how it's going to end. But the glory cloud is going to be a big part. It's just going to show up and invade, and then we're going to be there and lead 10 people to Jesus. And we didn't realize that's what we were going to do that night. So it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time. Isaiah 58:8. Then shall the light break forth like dawn, and your healing shall spring speedily. Your righteousness shall go before you. The glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Johnny was talking about the secret place. And I want to talk about the secret place because that's where we be. That's where we need to be. That's where we're going to be. And I'll say one thing to summarize this whole evening. The fear of the Lord drives out the fear of the world. If you stay in his presence, you can't miss. That's what Neveline just said. That's what Tim Sheets said yesterday. Moreover. Okay. Psalm 91. A lot of people do not understand Psalm 91. But Johnny was referring to it last Thursday. I submit to you, and I'm trying to sell you on the idea that you have a reason not to fear, and you can take great confidence in not having fear in these end times of anything. Now, so that's my job, is to sell you on what Johnny told you last week, but from a different angle. It's the secret place of the Lord is the shadow under his wings. Shall we read it? Psalm 91. I'm going to read the whole thing, and there's a reason. This is the main point, along with some excerpts of Exodus. He who dwells in the shadow of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, my refuge, my fortress, my God in whom I trust. I promise you, this is a reference to the glory cloud of Exodus. The shadow was part of the presence of God. For he will deliver you from the snare of the fowler, the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his pinions, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness is his shield and buckler. He will not feel the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence. Have we heard of pestilence? That stalks in the darkness, nor the destruction that wastes at noonday. 1,000 may fall at your side. 10,000 shall fall on your right hand. We lost about 200,000 last year, didn't we? But it will not come near you. You will only look with your eyes and see the recompense of the wicked, because you have made the Lord your dwelling place, the Most High, who is my refuge. No evil shall be allowed to befall you. No plague shall come near your tent. Anybody heard of any pandemics lately? Oh, no. That could never happen. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard your ways. On their hands they'll bear you up, lest you strike your foot against a stone. You will tread the lion, the adder, the young lion, the serpent. You will trample underfoot, because he holds fast to me in love. I will deliver him. I will protect him, because he knows my name. When he calls to me, I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I rescue him in honor. With long life, I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. Now, you're going to be protected if you stay close to the Lord. A lot of people don't understand this. The 12 disciples were martyred, except for one, because he was the one person that got a revelation of God in his love, and he was unkillable. And he was the one that gave us the book of Revelation, and he is a prophetic model that there are going to be those of us that cannot be killed. We are so going to be close to God that we will be unkillable. That is the prophetic message of the life of John. Exodus 8:23. Thus I will put a division between my people and your people. Tomorrow this sign shall happen. Now, a lot of people do not understand that the end times are not complicated. It's a replay of Exodus. That's it. That's all it is. The plagues of Exodus are the plagues of Revelation. Pharaoh, his name is replaced by Antichrist. Antichrist is going to persecute the believers. You just switch the characters, switch the names, and this is Exodus. But what happened with the Israelites? They walked out with the wealth of Egypt. There was a wealth transfer. There will be a wealth transfer. I'm trying to sell you on the idea of not succumbing to fear in the next few months, because America's going to have a bumpy ride. The division was God made a protection for the Israelites after the third plague. Now, the shadow of the Almighty, which we achieve by putting our heart, getting in the presence of the Lord, as Neveline said, is by making our hearts one with God in the presence of the Lord. That's what Johnny said last Thursday. The Lord went before them. The presence of the Lord was represented by this. As soon as they left Egypt, this was their protection, which is Psalm 91. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them along the way, by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, that they may travel by day and night. The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night did not depart from before the people. There's two clouds. I almost called this two clouds instead of the glory of the Lord, titling this, because God is both good and severe. Romans 11:22 says, the goodness and the severity of the Lord. God has a cover over us of a cloud, but he also is fire. He's also a consuming fire. And the Greasy Grace Church fails to recognize this. Then the angel of God, who was going before the host of Israel, thank you, moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them, coming between the host of Egypt and the host of Israel. And there was the cloud of darkness, and it lit up the night without one coming near the other. Now, in the Exodus, the Israelites came to the Red Sea, and they had no place to go. They were going through what was called a wadi, which is a vertical canyon. There's one way in and one way out, and you don't really have a plan B. They had no plan B, and they were scared because the trail ran out, and there's the ocean, and Pharaoh's behind them. And yet, they were protected because the cloud blinded the Israelites and actually blinded Pharaoh's army and gave the Israelites light. The fire and the cloud are both for the protection of the saints. But the fire and the cloud are not always for the enemy. And that is the goodness and the severity of the Lord in these end times. And as soon as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation, the people of Israel, they looked toward the wilderness, and the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. The cloud does represent the glory. That's what I'm trying to establish here. The secret place, Psalm 91, it's talking about this cloud. Exodus 33, 8 through 10. Whenever Moses went out of the tent, and all the people would rise up, and each would stand at his tent and watch Moses till he gone into the tent. When Moses entered the tent, the pillar of cloud would descend and stand at the entrance of the tent, and the Lord would speak to Moses. And when all the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, all the people would rise and worship, each at his tent door. Moses said to the Lord, and this is about the presence of God. This establishes that the purpose of the glory cloud is to connect with us so intimately that we are one. What did Johnny talk about next week or last week? He said, when your heart is so close to the Lord, you're in his presence. You're in the secret place. The glory cloud brings you to God in a place of protection. Moses said to the Lord, see, you say to me, bring up this people, but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. Yet you have said, I know you by name. I know that you have found favor in my sight. Now, therefore, if I have found favor in your sight, please show me now your ways that I may know you in order to find favor in your sight. Consider, too, that this nation is your people. He said, the Lord said, Moses is asking for the presence of God to be with him and the Israelites. He's saying, I can't do this anymore unless your presence shows up. Here is where God establishes his presence to be with you, his covenant people, and never leave you or forsake you. It was established right here. And the Lord said, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. And he said to him, if your presence will not go with me, do not bring us out of here. Moses is afraid about the trip across the desert. For how shall I know that I found favor in your sight, and I your people? Is it not in your going with us so that we are distinct, I and your people, from every other people on the earth? The Lord said to Moses, this very thing you have spoken, I will do, for you have found favor in your sight, and I know you by name. Moses said, please show me your glory. The point here is the glory is the evidence of the presence of God. Moses is scared. It's 120 degrees. There's no water, and the people are rebelling. And he says, if I don't get some of your presence with me, I'm quitting. And the Lord says, I've heard your prayer. This establishes for the covenant people that God will never leave you or forsake you. 1 Peter 2:5. Want to mention something in transition, because this is not the Easy Believism church, the Greasy Grace church. Just says, Father Christmas, he's going to give you a Mercedes. Oh, yeah, you cheated on your wife. You robbed people in the marketplace. You cheated on your income tax. Oh, God understands. No. We have to. The thing is, 1 Peter 2:5 says we are priests. And I'm leading up to something about priests. Where's the priest now? Thank you. The priests are you. A lot of religious groups believe in a priest to lord over them, tell them who they can marry, what restaurant they can go to, what they can wear. Should the hair be in a bun or should it be down? That's priests that are not real priests. In the new covenant, you are the priest. But the thing is, that comes with some qualifications. Now, the goodness and the severity of the Lord is one of the main points I want to make, is that this past year, we didn't win that many elections. But we prayed here for 15 weeks. And every week we prayed on a Friday night. We said, Lord, win us the election. And he said, and the Lord said, pray that I win back my church in America. We said, Lord, win the election. He said, church, pray that I win my church back in America. Over and over again. He didn't say anything about the election. He said, pray for the church. The American church is very sick right now. And the glory cloud is coming, and a lot of things are coming, and they're coming real quick. A few days ago, the Lord told me, he says, one of your three main prayers is for the American church, because we're about to have a collision. We're about to have a collision. Exodus 19, 16 through 22. This is as they're about to get the Ten Commandments and standing at the base of Mount Sinai. On the morning of the third day, there were thunders and lightnings and thick cloud on the mountain and very loud trumpet blasts, so that all the people in the camp trembled. Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet God, and they took their stand at the foot of the mountain. Now, Mount Sinai was wrapped in smoke, the cloud of smoke, because the Lord had descended upon it in fire. There you have it. The glory of the Lord has smoke and fire. The smoke went up like the smoke of a kiln, and the whole mountain trembled greatly. And as the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him in thunder. The Lord came down on Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain. The Lord called to Moses at the top of the mountain. Moses went up. The Lord said to Moses, go down and warn the people, lest they break through to the Lord and look, and many of them perish. This is one of the three main things I want y'all to remember as a first law of reference. Verse 22. And also let the priests who come near the Lord consecrate themselves, lest the Lord break out against them. We're on a collision course with God wanting to bring his glory and a disobedient church in America. The word says, judgment begins in the house of the Lord. The past few months, the Lord has told me, more than once, actually 3 or 4 times in the past 3 months, he said, pray for the church. He said, and I'm just going to lay it out there, because it has to do with the election. He said, a certain person we wanted to win the election didn't win, because for them to win, I have to bring my glory cloud. And if my glory cloud comes, several pastors are going to die in the pulpit. And he says, I cannot bring my heart to do that to those people. God is weeping over the American church. He doesn't want to have to do what he's done in the past to priests. Judgment begins in the house of the Lord. The first big judgment against the Israelites, once they became freed of Pharaoh, is this. Numbers 16:19. Korah's rebellion. It was the priests who came against Jesus, the priesthood, the religious community. Who came against Moses were the priests. Korah and 300 people, 250. And they said, we're taking the people back to Egypt. Then Korah and Moses said, let's have a holy assembly and see who the Lord will pick, you or me. Who's going to be the leader of Israel at this point? Korah assembled the congregation against them at the entrance of the tent meeting, and the glory of the Lord appeared to the congregation. Later in the story about Korah, the earth swallowed up some of them, Korah's family, and fire came down from heaven and killed the 250 people that rebelled with Korah and all their families. The goodness and the severity of the Lord. Judgment begins in the house of the Lord. The Lord told me a year ago, he said, when the fireworks start in America, and there will be major fireworks, he said, you're going to know that my judgment of America has come, because it's going to happen in the church. We're waiting for the church. Somebody's not president because we're waiting on the church. Because God is not willing that any soul should perish. And we have a backslidden church. The glory of the Lord also comes not just against the covenant people, but against the wicked. And 1 Kings, Elijah is on Mount Carmel, and he's with the prophets of Baal. And the fire comes down and consumes the sacrifice. Again, that's the glory of the Lord. The judgment by fire is also the glory of the Lord, because that's who he is. Second Peter 3:7, but by the same word the heavens and the earth that now exist are stored up for fire, being kept to the day of judgment, to the destruction of the ungodly. Yes. 5 or 10? Okay. All right. Well, we're almost done. God judges with fire. The glory cloud is judging the earth with fire. And the point I'm trying to make is, if you're close to the Lord, you're going to conquer in the greatest ways you've ever done in your life. America's greatest days are around the corner, but we cannot be in fear. But on the other hand, he's going to have to judge some people when he comes in his glory cloud, because he is both good and severe. And this is, how do you say it, sir? Tishbab? Tishma'av, okay. Yesterday was, in 1 minute I'm done, the roughest day in the Jewish calendar, because it is the day that the Jerusalem temple was destroyed by fire in 70 AD. And Perry Stone did a sermon recently, and he said on the same day, 9 years later, the Sodom and Gomorrah of the Roman Empire, Pompeii, was destroyed on the same day by Mount Vesuvius blowing up by fire. And so I just wanted to finish. This is real time. This is really happening. And yet we are going to walk in tremendous victory. In Acts 5:15, Peter was walking among the people, and his shadow healed the people. The cloud of glory came upon him, and his shadow covered the people and healed them. We are going to walk in so much power that God is going to imbue the characteristics of the glory cloud on us. And when the two witnesses in Revelation 11 walk upon the earth during the tribulation, they're going to be calling fire out down from the heavens. We're not only going to be experiencing the glory cloud, we're going to be brokers of it. That's the power we're walking in if you don't succumb to fear right now. And Revelation 10 and 11 says, who's going to take the devil down? Derek Prince's main point in his whole life was, we're going to take him down. We're not waiting for the angels. We're taking the devil out of the second heaven. The saints of Joel's army is going to take over and take down the enemy, not through traditional religious church. The Lord gave me a word yesterday morning, and I'm done. And he said, religion is man stealing the glory of God. But we have to hide in the secret place of the Lord, and we're going to have the greatest times of our entire lives. And Joel's army. Oh, and one more thing. With the greatest events that have ever happened to the United States in terms of cataclysm that may be in a few weeks away, God gave me a dream a few days ago, and he showed me that we were having a party. We impact people. We were having a party in a room like this, only it was all gold and white. It was 5 times nicer than this, although the same colors. And we were on a rock precipice on the ocean. And a tidal wave came and killed everyone around us. And we were just sipping G-rated fruit juices. and nothing happened to us. This is the heritage of the saints. Praise the name of the Lord.